This is the VSO Marketing Manager, Margot Van Horn. I've got Gabe Langfur here, our principal bass trombone, calling in from Boston so that I can ask him 5 questions. Thanks for joining us, Gabe.
My pleasure.
So my first question for you is, what was a typical workday like before the pandemic for you?
Well, I'll tell you what I usually say to a question like that is that I don't really have typical days, which I like. But I have a couple of different kinds of days, typically. One of them would be going off to Boston University, where I teach, practicing there for a while, and then teaching 2 or 3 lessons, coming home, having dinner with my wife, maybe practicing a little bit more, and going to bed. And then another kind of day would be a day where I'm home in the morning, practicing for a while, and then going off to a rehearsal or a gig somewhere. Sometimes that happens on the road, like when I'm up from Boston for the Vermont Symphony, where I would stay with my hosts, thank you, Kathy and Keith, and do a little practicing in their place, and then go off to rehearsal. So those are my two most typical kinds of days.
So now that everybody's typical day has kind of gone haywire, what's a typical day like for you now?
Now I get up, have breakfast, usually either in the late morning or the late afternoon. I'll go for a walk with my wife. We're very fortunate to live right near a nice park and some other places where we can walk and stay away from people. And then I will do a little practicing, teach a couple of lessons over Zoom, and that's about it.
That's honestly more than a lot of people are doing right now. So sounds good, all things considered.
Yeah.
So what's something that people might not realize about being a professional trombonist? This can be anything that you want them to know.
Sure. Well, trombone players, we sort of have there's a stereotype about trombone players that, we like to drink beer and, hang out, and we're sort of the guys of the orchestra. No disrespect meant at all to the many wonderful women who play trombone. But the truth, actually, and there is some truth to that, but also trombone players actually tend to be a pretty well-read bunch. I actually have a degree in English literature. Many of my friends, trombone playing friends, also, read a lot and write various things. And part of the reason, part of what feeds that anyway, is that we, in a typical orchestra program, we have many tacit movements or pieces that we don't play on. So we actually have a lot of time in the time of a rehearsal where we can, get through a good portion of a book.
I love that. Does this mean that you and the rest of the trombone section, when you visit up here, you won't go to breweries anymore? You'll just hit bookstores, or is it still kind of the balance of? There's
a balance.
Good.
We usually will hit the bookstore at some point, and the breweries as well. Yeah.
What's the most unusual show you've ever played?
So, yeah, there are a few. One of them was certainly when the whole Vermont Symphony played a wedding. That was one. That was at the Trapp Family Lodge. Mm-hmm. And there was one in college with a Russian performance artist that had everything from my trombone quartet to the pep band to some chorus to I think he tried to get live goats, and that might have happened. That was something. But the one that the story I usually tell is a little longer than we have time for. But I was hired to play an R&B review. It was basically sort of B-list R&B acts. It was highly unorganized. The host was Isaac Hayes. And when it came time for Isaac Hayes to do his own set, his music had never shown up on our stands. So he went backstage, and I think somebody got fired or injured, or I don't know what exactly. But he had to come back on stage and improvise a set with the rhythm section. That was fun. There's much more to that story, but that was a good one.
Man, I don't even know what to say to that one. So, Gabe, what's your favorite Ben & Jerry's flavor? That's my last question.
I am old school. Coffee toffee crunch is what it's called now. But
change the name.
Yeah, that's my go-to.
That's a good one. You didn't need my approval, but you have it anyway. Thanks again for answering my random questions. Hope you're staying safe and sane at home in Boston.
Doing my best. Thank you very much. This was a pleasure.